Welcome back to the GP Productions podcast. Okay, welcome back to the show. Another returning guest for the third time.
It's me again. Your song, it makes me dance. It makes me do this. Like lots of punches, air punches. I love it.
Yeah. My good friend Kevin Mullally, another shout out to him for making that great song.
Every time I'm on the show, I say, I love your theme song. I love it so much. It's like, I love it.
Yeah. So what are we here to talk about?
Vince McMahon and this whole steroid debacle from 1994 is when the trial was. Yeah. I didn't know a lot about this before because my genre is not professional wrestling. I don't know a lot about that, but I love it that you're bringing me into this. And it's fun to talk about, really. There's so much crazy shit that has happened in the pro wrestling genre. I love it. Like, I could do a whole spin-off of true crime and wrestling. There's so much, like, mystery and controversy and conspiracy theories. I love it so much. So tonight, though, yes, we're talking about Vince McMahon and his it's the United States versus McMahon, which was a 1994 Supreme Court trial in the United States. Basically, well, it all started back in 1991 with Dr. George Zahorian, who he was indicted and convicted of giving out steroids to professional wrestlers. And he kind of threw Vince McMahon under the bus, basically. And he was like, well, you know, the reason I did this was because of Vince McMahon. That's kind of how it started, 1991. Yeah. McMahon was indicted in 93. Trial started in 94. We're going to get to that later. Didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, so, that's even the last two podcasts we've done were about murder. So we tried to lower the tone down a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I've done so much murder lately. Not myself. I have not committed murder, but I've talked about the worst of the worst serial killers. I have done like a lot of deep dive series with other podcasters and things like that. And like, I just did a show before I came on this one with a comedian. I'm really trying to bring it down a notch because, oh boy, there's a lot on my mind with true crime and murder and all that stuff. So let's not talk about that tonight. He didn't kill anyone, right? McMahon didn't kill anyone.
No. Not that I know of. Why is everything so dramatic in America? Like this trial is called the United States versus Vince McMahon. That's dramatic.
Oh my gosh. It is super dramatic. It is. But, you know, McMahon himself, he's kind of a dramatic character in and of himself. So he like portrayed that in the wrestling world and like lots of dramatic stuff on TV. And a lot of it was fake, as people say professional wrestling is, but
you can't say that.
I mean, it's not fake, it's scripted, but the drama in their real lives is actually way more interesting than what they portray on TV, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you might rebrand the podcast to True Crime Wrestling. I think you'd have more than enough content.
I seriously think we need a pro wrestling spinoff. Like, pro wrestling, WWE, WWF. Now I know all the acronyms. And then UFC also. I love UFC, so we could probably have a whole thing about that too. So yeah.
We'll touch on the doctor, Dr. Zahorian. He said that he sold steroids to these two gentlemen, Rowdy Roddy Piper, who's since passed away, and Obviously, you know who that is. Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan. Yes. Yeah. Those are two. So when I was a kid, and I'm kind of old, believe it or not, I'm kind of old. Those are the two I really remember: Rowdy Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan. Everyone knew them. Whether you were into wrestling or not, they were seriously a household name. Everyone knew who they were. So, yes, George Zahorian, Pennsylvania doctor. He worked ringside for the WWF, and he was convicted of illegally supplying steroids to pro wrestlers. Yes.
And one thing that didn't help Vince McMahon at this time was he was running his own bodybuilding federation as well, which he ceased while this was going on, because the guy, as you can see him now,
look at him. How old is he there? I mean, who looks like that? Like,
he's in his 50s there.
Dude, like, I know a lot of like 20-year-olds who do not look like that. That is not natural. Just gonna say, I mean, that's my opinion. I think he may have been medically enhanced, or like
he has
there's something going on there.
He has admitted to using steroids in the past since.
He did, yes.
He did. Yeah.
That's actually in my notes. He used them before they became illegal in 1991. So, like, before 1991, you could just like do all the steroids you wanted. That was a thing you could do.
Yeah, apparently so. Crazy. And that's why
even in sports, like, you could, before 1991, you could just use steroids and get all buff and like be the best wrestler ever.
Yeah, and I'd say a lot of maybe NFL players and different people like that must have been all using them. I've never seen any 80s NFL, so I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Well, you were born in the 80s, weren't you?
88.
God. Such a baby.
Still a baby. So Vince, during this, was charged with distributing steroids, and I think it was intent to supply them to his wrestlers as well. But a lot of things were thrown out in this case even before it got to that point, though, as well.
Yeah, it was kind of like so much of it was debunked. And I'm like, you know what? I do commend Vince, his wife, their whole business they had going on. When shit started coming out, they really like tried to get rid of all the garbage and the stuff that was going on with people on the fringe. Like, they put their rules into place and started the drug testing and all of that, which was good. But back to the trial, 1994 is when it started. There were like, I think, I'm going to look at my notes here for a second. I think there were like 11 witnesses who were going to be testifying against him. So it was like Hulk Hogan and all the big names. So the prosecution had all these people lined up to testify against him, but it really ended up not working in the prosecution's favor, because they were like,
they didn't want to hang their boss up to dry, really,
I mean, was it that, or were they just telling the truth? I don't know. They said, you know what, he never actually did that. He never told me to use steroids. That was never a thing. So it was just very quickly, a lot of the stuff was thrown out. It was not even viable in court, really.
Yeah. I don't know if I believe that Vince McMahon sold steroids to wrestlers, but I do believe that he knew they were using them. That's my personal opinion on it.
That's like every professional sport. They're all, I mean, so many people were and still are using steroids, to the knowledge of like the coaches and the owners and things like that. That just happens. It does. And people turn a blind eye. It happens. I totally think that was happening, but I also don't think he like held people at gunpoint to do them, or was like, here's part of our protocol, you're going to take steroids. I don't think that happened at all. And 11 people, actually 10 people, could not all be in cahoots and lying. I don't think. Nobody had anything bad to say except one person.
This man.
Nails, right? That's his name, right? Nails with a Z.
Nails with a Z, yeah.
Like, I said, I don't know a ton about pro wrestling. I need to learn it a little more because it's fun. I like it a lot. He actually came out later and was like, I fucking hate Vince McMahon. I hate him. Like he had it out for him, and he said a lot of shit about him in the trial, but it was kind of, I think it was, don't quote me on this, I think a lot of his testimony may have been like thrown out or something, like, and they
seen
him
it as a personal issue.
Yeah. He just like hated him and wanted him to go down for things that he may not have been guilty of. Yeah.
What a nasty looking dude. Let's look at him again.
Yeah, let's look at him again. He's that hair. It's parted right down the middle. Tell me what nails means. Like what is that? What is his character known for? Do you know even?
I think it was just tough guy, tough as nails, and I think
tough
that's,
as nails.
Yeah,
Okay. Well, he doesn't look, you know what he looks like? He doesn't look tough as nails. He looks soft as dough. I don't know. Like he does not look tough to me. I don't know. Yeah.
During the trial, though, a lot of the wrestlers did say that they had used steroids, including Hulk Hogan.
Oh, totally. Yeah. But not, I mean, it had nothing to do necessarily with Vince McMahon. And so he was found not guilty later at the end of the trial. Well, the trial didn't last very long. I think there was a jury and they deliberated for not a lot of time, and he was quickly found not guilty of any of that stuff. But the trial itself, all the stuff that went on, it did kind of change the way they did business in the WWE, WWF. They started doing drug testing after that. They had like a zero tolerance policy for steroid use and things like that. They really started treating professional wrestling like a legitimate sport, I feel like, after that. Like the Olympics or any other sport that they do drug testing and all of those. They started doing it for professional wrestling then too. So yeah. It changed a lot of things.
I got a little scoop last night from this episode's going to be out in a couple of weeks, but the episode I put out before it, I was interviewing a wrestler last night that was in WWF from 1984 to 1991, and in that podcast he told me a story about two professional wrestlers. I can't remember which two they were. It's in the podcast anyway. Were pulled over by the cops at a show in New York in the late 80s, early 90s. I think it was 1990. And they had a load of steroids with them. And the cops pulled them over, and there was big shit about it. And Vince McMahon called a board meeting. And all the wrestlers went up to the board meeting, and he just lost his shit over it, apparently.
He was like really mad about that. Like, we don't do that. Like, yeah.
But the guy I was talking to, Mario Mancini is his name. He said last night, but after Vince left the meeting, they were all looking around and said, but we're all on the juice. Like Mario said to me, I was on steroids back in the 80s in WWF. He said everybody was.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah. I mean, look at their bodies. That doesn't happen naturally, typically. I don't know.
Yeah.
So was he mad that they got caught, or was he mad that they were doing it in general? He was like, do it. Don't let anyone find out about it. I don't want to know about it. Don't talk about it. But then they got caught, so there was a lot of light shed on that. Yeah.
So it was interesting to hear it from somebody that was actually there, though, and
that
was so open. He was so open with me last night. He's a really, really nice guy. Really good podcast, and
that's awesome. So you and we've talked about Jimmy Snuka. We've talked about Chris Benoit, and what I want to talk about with you is, were they on steroids, do you think?
I'd imagine. Well, Jimmy Snuka was in that era as well. Yeah. But then with the Chris thing, there was a lot of things, different things going on. But steroids was a factor.
But in the media, in like conspiracy theories and things like that, and like just gossip, people said Chris Benoit was on steroids. Everybody said Jimmy Snuka was on steroids, and we've talked about this before. You know, they both killed people. I mean, they were both are thought to have killed people. There's also a lot of conspiracy around those things. But do you think steroids may have contributed to that? I do. I personally think it was a cocktail of like mental health issues and then steroid use and then
drink and
like
whatever else on top of
and
it.
head injuries too from being in the business, I think. So
yeah,
that's what I think.
Yeah, I think the most interesting one, if we kick back to the Benoit thing, is when they studied his brain after he died, and they said he's the brain of an 80-year-old Alzheimer's patient. Like, that tells a lot. But that mightn't necessarily be from steroids. That could be concussions. There could be a cocktail of things, really.
I think it's a mix of all of it. I do. Yeah.
So they changed the business model shortly after that, and they start bringing in a lot of smaller guys into the business because they were all in the 80s. They were all built like Hulk Hogan, these big, huge guys. So it started bringing in smaller guys and stuff like that as well.
Like more like natural sized people. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was obviously to do with the trial, but they wanted to make it, I think, look better because there was a lot of bad publicity around wrestling through this trial because it was a massive thing in America. Vince McMahon versus America.
Versus
it's huge.
America. That is like just the headline alone is like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And while researching this, I had only realized that they're going to make a big TV thing out of this soon with Blumhouse and WWE Productions are going to.
I read about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
Pretty exciting. It's going to be titled The United States of America versus Vince McMahon, and it's by WWE Studios and Blumhouse Television. So that's coming up soon, and that press release was just released like a month and a half ago. So this is totally new, something like that's just in the works right now. It's going to be a Viceland Pro Wrestling docuseries. Something like associated with Dark Side of the Ring, which that's a super popular show, right? I've never seen an episode of it, but I've listened to a lot of podcasts that have referenced it. So it's going to be, an interesting thing coming up. So basically he's going to be making kind of like an autobiography kind of docuseries about his own trial and his own life. So
it sounds like it could be a bit one-sided.
I was going to say, like, I think it's going to be a little bit one-sided. It's him producing it and like talking about it. I think it's going to be a little bit one-sided, but the trial, like all the notes about the trial, like are totally in his favor. So there's not a lot else that can be said. But I would love to hear like some other sides of the story. I kind of would love to talk to Nails, really. I think that'd be interesting to see what he had to say, just because he was so like adamantly against McMahon. So I don't know.
I think we should try getting Nails on the podcast.
You know what? I bet he'd come. I bet he would.
We could both interview Nails.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan.
Let's do it. Yeah, I think that would be great. Yes.
Before we talk to Nails, though, what we'll do is we'll wrap up here, and I'll come up with I'll brainstorm something else from the WWE that isn't murder but is totally out there, and maybe you'll come back again on the show with me.
I will come back, and actually, we've been doing this. This is time number 3, so I think I just think we should make it a once a month thing. Like, let's just do this. There's enough content for us to be doing this for like ever.
10 years. 10 years at least.
There's so much shit. Like, we could be doing this for a long time. So, and I love talking to you. I love the pro wrestling audience. Everyone's so fun. I just love that I've been able to cross over to this, something I didn't know anything about, but is so freaking interesting. I've had so much fun with it.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, then, do you want to tell people where they can find your podcast?
Yes,
I'm going to put it in the video as normal.
Yeah. So it's True Crime IRL, all one word. You can find it on Apple, on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, all the platforms. I'm everywhere. And you can find me on Instagram at True Crime IRL, all one word. Or you can follow my own page, which is Kelli Brink, KelliBrink. And yeah, all the stuff. So just, you can Google it, whatever, you'll find me.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you, Maurice, or Morris, as the people in Ireland call you. Thank
Thanks.
you. Thanks. Bye.